Hello and welcome to the first I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes public meeting. Our first public meeting is virtual, and we are excited that you took the time from your very busy schedules to attend this very important meeting. My name is Rebecca Hammonds, and I am the P3 Communications Officer here at TDOT.
And I'm Brian Ledford, the Executive Director of
Hello and welcome to the first
I-24.
In this public meeting, we will be sharing the same information that you would see at our in-person public meetings. So if you attend those on August 21st, 28th, or 29th, this will look very familiar. Today, we will share information on the project development process and what we have done so far, as well as share 2 design alternatives under consideration. Please note, there is also a no-build option. During the presentation, you may use the podium feature to the right of the live stream to enter any comments or questions you may have. Your comment will be entered into the official project record and may be read aloud during the meeting and will be responded to either after this presentation or post-event by the project team. The materials we reviewed today will be available on the I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes project website throughout the open comment period, which begins today, August 14th, and ends on September 19th, 2024. Your feedback is critical to the project, so we encourage you to provide input and share your concerns in the survey following this meeting. Or you can reach out to the project team by email at tdot.24choicelanes@tn.gov or leave us a message at 615-451-8039. We will begin by providing an overview of the proposed I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes project, the first proposed choice lanes project in Tennessee. So what are choice lanes? Well, choice lanes are priced managed lanes that provide motorists the option to bypass congestion in exchange for a user fee. The proposed project would construct new additional lanes along approximately 26 miles of I-24 between Nashville and Murfreesboro as optional choice lanes. These proposed new choice lanes would address travel time reliability and regional connectivity for thousands of motorists and transit riders daily. Benefits that choice lanes would bring to this heavily traveled corridor include, first and foremost, the opportunity for a more reliable trip time that saves you valuable time. If you're late to an appointment or an interview, or if you're a business owner responding to service calls, if you are riding a WeGo public transit line, or if you are a rideshare driver, or perhaps you just find it valuable to be able to be home sooner after a long day. Having this additional choice could save you those minutes on the road. The shift of traffic over to the new choice lanes would also improve traffic conditions for motorists who choose to stay in the existing general purpose lanes, including the HOV lane where available. As we all know, less traffic means a higher quality of life. It also means better air quality and savings on transportation costs. We have partnered with WeGo to offer all their transit service fee access to the choice lanes, and we will talk more about that later in the meeting. Now, you may be wondering, if I have to pay a user fee to access to new choice lanes, how are they different from toll roads? Well, choice lanes are different from toll roads in that all motorists have a choice to use these new lanes. Choice lanes, right there in the name, whereas toll roads require every motorist to pay a toll to get from point A to point B. So again, these are appropriately named choice lanes because you have the option to use them or to stay in the general purpose lanes without paying a user fee. Another difference is that the user fees are not tax revenue for the state of Tennessee. TDOT will be utilizing a public-private partnership, or P3, which we will talk about more in a minute. And so user fees are used by the private partner to maintain and operate these lanes and allows TDOT to allocate state funds elsewhere, such as widening rural interstates. Now, your next question may be, how will this project be funded? In 2023, the Transportation Modernization Act, or TMA, passed and fundamentally changed the way that we deliver projects. The TMA gave us the authority to enter into public-private partnerships and expanded our alternative delivery program, which provided more delivery options and established fee parity between electric vehicles and traditional vehicles. The legislation also provided a one-time $3 billion general fund transfer. TMA funds have been allocated for a partial public contribution needed for the proposed I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes project, which will be delivered through a P3, where the private sector partner would design, build, finance, operate, and maintain the proposed project in exchange for the future user fees. By tapping into private investment, TDOT reduces the need for state funding for the project so that it can continue providing transportation improvements to other parts of the state. Now, before we dive into the purpose and need for I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes, I briefly want to share how this corridor was selected for Tennessee's first Choice Lanes project. The state of Tennessee has grown tremendously over the last decade, and this has not gone unnoticed by our residents or our transportation planners. TDOT has spent years analyzing the growth trends of traffic congestion across the state and developing congestion action plans, which you can read by visiting our Choice Lanes webpage. The I-24 Southeast Corridor emerged from this research as one of the most frequently congested corridors in the state that would benefit from Choice Lanes. And earlier this year, the Transportation Modernization Board approved the recommendation to advance environmental studies for the project. So now Brian is going to tell us more about the draft purpose and need for the I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes.
Thanks, Rebecca. A purpose and need statement explains why the project is necessary and the goal or goals the project will achieve. The draft purpose and need of this project is to improve travel time reliability within the corridor and to address regional connectivity issues along approximately 26 miles of I-24 between I-40 south of downtown Nashville and I-840 near Murfreesboro. The proposed project would address unreliable trip times for commuters, including those commuting via passenger vehicles or transit, regional connectivity issues, and multimodal mobility. As you can see, environmental studies on the I-24 Southeast project began in early 2024 and are expected to be complete in 2025. Stakeholder and public engagement is critical to the process and important to TDOT, so we will engage with Tennesseans throughout the project lifecycle. We plan to host in-person public hearings in early 2025 for you to review and comment on the draft environmental assessment document. The request for proposals will be released in the second quarter of 2025. Commercial close with the private sector partner is expected in 2026, with construction anticipated to start in 2027. And throughout the entire project development process, we continue to engage with our important stakeholders and communities we serve. The dates that you see on the screen are subject to change and are contingent on the final environmental assessment being approved by the Federal Highway Administration. TDOT is following the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, for the I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes project. The NEPA process seeks to balance the transportation mobility needs of a community while minimizing potential impacts to the human and natural environment. An environmental impact or an environmental assessment, or EA, determines whether the proposed project has the potential to significantly affect the human and natural environment. Part of what is considered, what you all as the public who live, work, or find recreation or services in this project area express about how you would be affected by the project. Public engagement and the feedback we receive from public meetings like this is a critical component of this process to inform the project decision-making process. Part of the NEPA process is conducting an alternatives analysis. This is the screening process used to compare different improvement options for the project to see which solution best meets the transportation need while balancing the potential impacts to the environment and local communities. For the I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes project, a range of multimodal alternatives were evaluated in previous planning studies, and choice lanes were identified as the recommended alternative. During this analysis, the project team looks at several preliminary alternatives and evaluates whether it meets the purpose and need of the project. At each level of evaluation, the number of alternatives will decrease as those alternatives that are the lowest performing are eliminated. The reasonable alternatives, which we are showing you today to get feedback, are the alternatives that were the best performing with the least impacts to the human and natural environment. This feedback, along with our engineering, traffic analysis, environmental studies, help define the recommended preferred alternative, which will be shown at the public hearing next year. Throughout the process, we are engaging with partner agencies, stakeholders, and you. Environmental justice, as defined by the Environmental Protection Agency, seeks the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. We are applying this to the I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes project by evaluating if any burdens are disproportionately experienced by populations and develop mitigation strategies to balance the benefits for all communities. Let's move on to discussing noise. TDOT will be conducting a noise study in accordance with the Federal Highway Administration's noise standards to determine the acoustic impact of the proposed project. The study will determine what noise abatement measures could and should be provided. Noise barriers are one abatement measure that would be considered. They absorb traffic and construction noise to help minimize disturbances to those that live and work near high traffic areas. More information about noise impacts will come later in the project development process. We will also be conducting a visual impacts assessment, which considers feedback received from neighbors and travelers of the project corridor on the visual components of the project. In addition to the official public comment card, we are requesting travelers and neighbors of our I-24 Southeast to take our visual preferences survey. Travelers are drivers or passengers utilizing the corridor for commuting, leisure travel, shopping, local vehicle, or short trips. Neighbors could include residential, recreational, institutional, civic, retail, commercial, industrial, or agricultural entities. If you fall into either category, we invite you to scan the QR code or visit the I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes Project website to take the visual impacts survey. We've developed two options, which we call alternatives, for the I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes project. There is also the no-build alternative, meaning there is always an option to not build the project. You can review the conceptual designs for the two alternatives and look at various sections that are most important to you, such as where you live or travel to, on the project website. These will remain on the website for you to review and will be updated for the public hearing next year. We will also have these printed and on large TV screens at the in-person public meetings if you have questions about specific areas. We also have two alternatives for the potential choice lanes access points. It's important to note that in both alternatives, no general purpose access is removed or lost. There are multiple types of access. The purple outlined circle is a direct merge with the choice lanes, meaning if you are already driving on I-24 Southeast, there will be a merge access into or out of the new choice lanes. You do not need to leave I-24 to access the lanes from the merge. The red circle is a new exclusive choice lanes interchange. The private sector partner would build these new interchanges for use only by those using the new choice lanes. The arrows show whether the access is for entering or exiting only, or if there is full access, meaning you can both enter and exit. The second alternative shows the same type of access as the first, except we have a few different access points. Alternative 2 does not have a merge access into and out of the choice lanes at East Thompson Lane. The new choice lanes interchange at Waldron Road does not exist in this alternative. Instead of a merge into and out of the choice lanes south of Rocky Fork Road, we show connections to the choice lanes at State Route 102, Almaville Road. Next, let's take a look at the typical sections of the roadway. The first shows an at-grade look at where the choice lanes would be placed. This shows 2 new choice lanes in each direction. No existing general purpose or HOV lanes are removed. The new choice lanes are separated from the concrete median by 12-foot shoulders. Buffer delineators separate the new choice lanes from the general purpose traffic. An outside shoulder will still exist on both sides of I-24 Southeast in both directions. In the elevated typical section, we see where the choice lanes would be placed when elevated from existing traffic. We expect certain sections of I-24 to be elevated depending on the right-of-way needs and the existing landscape. This shows 2 new elevated choice lanes in each direction. Again, no existing general purpose lanes or HOV lanes are removed, just as we saw in the at-grade typical section. The elevated choice lanes have concrete barrier wall on both sides. An outside shoulder will still exist on both sides of I-24 Southeast with the existing general purpose lanes. Let's move on to sharing how a driver might experience the choice lanes now that you've seen where the potential access points will be. Please note that this is an illustrative representation of the new choice lanes, as we want to give you an idea of how they can be used. As you saw, the new choice lanes provide an additional option without removing any of the existing general purpose lanes. Next, Rebecca will share some traffic data from the I-24 Southeast corridor with you.
Well, first, existing traffic conditions. These traffic congestion on I-24 Southeast during the morning rush hour is significant, especially moving westbound towards downtown Nashville, where the congestion often persists throughout the day. In the westbound lanes, congestion starts at I-840 and extends into downtown Nashville. Eastbound traffic worsens during the evening rush hour, resulting in slower speeds and longer travel times. Next, we will look at the no-build scenario. If no improvements are made, morning congestion is expected to extend beyond I-840 within the next 20 to 25 years, leading to severe delays. The evening rush hour will also become increasingly problematic, potentially resulting in gridlock conditions. And now let's look at our build scenarios in year 2052. We are proposing adding choice lanes along this corridor, which would provide 2 additional travel lanes in each direction. Vehicle using these choice lanes would maintain speeds of at least 45 miles per hour. While not everyone may choose to use the choice lanes, the overall traffic flow in general purpose lanes is expected to improve significantly with their introduction. This shows the second alternative future traffic operations in year 2052. You see similar improvements with fluctuations in the morning and evening commutes. TDOT is expected to work with our local transit partner, WeGo Public Transit, to share the benefits transit customers would experience with choice lanes. Not only would passenger vehicles receive a more reliable trip time with choice lanes, but so would transit vehicles. Transit buses would be able to use the choice lanes for free, creating an incentive for them to use the lanes for a faster, more reliable trip time. Other states have seen ridership increases and improved transit movements and performance. So we fully expect to experience that here in Tennessee. Georgia experienced a 10% increase in on-time bus performance. Texas saw a 73% ridership increase due to reliable travel times and choice lanes. We are still in the early stages of project development, and we'll have more to share on the right-of-way impacts at the public hearing. But if you are interested in the federally mandated process TDOT follows to acquire property for projects like this, you can view our right-of-way brochure on the project website. Our standard process is shown on the screen. Well, now that you have had the opportunity to hear from us and review the project materials, we encourage you to take the survey linked on the project website and submit your feedback on the proposed project. Your feedback will be considered part of the project record, and this gives you the opportunity to have a say in the project decisions before they happen. The materials we've gone over today will be available on the project website throughout the public comment period, which will end on September 19th, 2024. You can submit your feedback by completing the survey on the project website, emailing tdot.24choicelanes.tn.gov, leaving a message at the project hotline at 615-451-8039, or downloading and completing a paper comment card and mailing it to us. All comments received during the comment period will be made public as part of the proposed project's official record and posted to the project website. All questions and comments will be responded to following the close of the comment period. Now, as a reminder, you may use the podium feature to the right of the live stream to enter your comments or questions you may have. Your comment will be entered into the official project record. We have been receiving questions throughout this meeting, and we're excited to answer as many of them as we can today. Now, the ones we can't answer today will be responded to following the close of the comment period, and answers will be posted on the website. Please remember that there are several other options to contact us outside of the official comment period. Now, let's take a look at those questions that we can answer now. All right. So we've had several come in. The first one we can tackle, it says which segments would be the at-grade cross sections and which segments would be the elevated cross sections?
So this varies throughout the corridor, and if you look at the alternative displays that you can see in the virtual meeting room, you can get clarification on where we think these will be at grade, where they will be elevated. But again, this is conceptual design, and some of that could change as that design gets refined.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how can the proposed 4 additional lanes be accommodated with the current land space?
So we will need some right of way. We will need some right of way in some areas. We're not far enough along into the plans to identify specific tracks or areas. We're trying to understand that, but very importantly, we want to hear from you as to how this would impact you between the two alternatives, and the the final I guess right of way impacts would be seen in the public hearing in early 2025.
Okay, will public transit, i.e. WeGo buses and others, receive free use of the paid lanes? They will. Yeah, as I just mentioned, WeGo buses will be able to use those choice lanes for free. And the good news is this the studies, well, from experience, other states have seen very positive impacts, increased ridership, more reliable trips, and we fully expect to see that here. Okay, let's see here. What is the Transportation Modernization Board, and how are those members selected?
Sure. The Transportation Modernization Board was formed by the Transportation Modernization Act. It is the body that governs choice lanes. It's comprised of both executive and legislative appointees. And there are a number of duties of that board that are dictated by statute. But we've had one meeting. We have another meeting coming up in November.
And those members are listed on our website, so you can go onto our TDOT, I think it's the Transportation Modernization Act or Board, but you can see their faces and their names and read more about them. Okay, I want to make sure I'm understanding this question. How will one less road for normal traffic help resolve our situation? What other solutions have been considered?
Sure. I think the key here is that everyone benefits from the choice lanes being built, not just folks who pay the user fee and gets in those lanes. The general purpose lanes also experience improved trip times, an improved level of service. So this solution was considered because it benefits all users of the corridor, not just those who pay.
Yeah, and we want to stress that there are no general purpose lanes that will become a managed lane.
That's right.
All 4 lanes that you currently use will remain free. These are 2 additional lanes. We are essentially widening I-24. So these will be 2 additional lanes, and those are the ones that will be price managed.
In terms of why I-24, you know, we've posted on the TDOT website congestion studies that led to the selection of the I-24 Southeast Corridor as the first choice lanes project.
Well, I really like this question. Will the transponder be called ball pass like in the video? No. I mean, we're trying to come up with something clever or cheeky. Probably, I don't know if it's going to be ball pass.
I vote for choice pass. We'll
find something better than that.
and we'll have a process to name that makes sense.
Yes, but in all seriousness, that name has not been determined yet, and the visualization was just illustrative. But there will be a name, and you know, this actually brings up a good point that we could talk a little bit more about the transponders. So transponders are not what they used to be. What did they used to look like, Brian?
Well, you won't remember this, but they used to look like radar detectors, big clunky box on your dash. But it's a sticker. It's a smart sticker that has a RFID chip that can be read. And I think the interesting thing to think about on this project is that technology is moving so quickly that what's being used today may not be what's used by the time we go lanes open because it's evolving that quickly. This is an interesting one, and we don't want there to be any confusion about the $3 billion that we talked about.
Let's read the question.
Why is TDOT choosing to dedicate a one-time $3 billion transfer to constructing just one more lane? So the Transportation Modernization Act provided the one-time $3 billion general funds transfer that was spread across all the regions in Tennessee. And of the portion that came to Middle Tennessee, 250 million of that was set aside. This is all in our 10-year plan that you can also find on the TDOT website. So 250 million, the private sector partner will provide the rest of this through their equity, through their financing arrangements. They're bringing the vast majority of the investment to the table on this project.
So Another one is why not widen the road with just more general purpose lanes, free lanes? And that's a great question. It's something we've looked at, we've poured over data, and what other states, if you've traveled through some other states that have, what is it, 8 to 9 lanes of general purpose traffic, with growth comes it also just being filled.
It also has to do with the managed lane concept that a bunch of adjacent general purpose lanes with folks weaving in and out of every lane don't provide efficient congestion reduction the way that a managed lane solution does. And that's what the choice lanes are. They're a managed lane solution that separates the flow of these 2 lanes from the flow of the other 4 lanes, and then everybody moves better.
Yeah. And with the managed lanes, you are receiving that more reliable trip time that you can start to plan your life around, hopefully.
Or stay in the free lanes and
That's
still
right.
get a better trip time.
That's exactly right. Will TDOT have some control over the private regulation of this roadway? So the important thing we want everyone to know is that TDOT will always own the road. TDOT will always own the facility. This is essentially a long-term lease. So our private partners will design, build, operate, and maintain this facility, but this will always be Tennesseans' roads. And then the other thing is that we have the Transportation Modernization Board in place for a reason. They will help us, they will create the methodology around a lot of these regulations for that
That's right.
private partner. Let's see. That one.
So from the animation, it shows an intersection in the middle of a bridge to connect to the choice lanes. So traffic crossing the highway will be affected by this intersection and delayed. So the animation was just a visual representation. The new choice lane intersection will be designed to accommodate all of the traffic movements that it will be accommodating. So that may mean widened bridges, improved lanes, but the whole point is that the traffic on those crossing arterials is not negatively impacted by these new movements. If anything, we want them to be improved.
Will multi-occupancy vehicles, 2 or more or 3 or more, be able to use the choice lanes for free like in other states?
So this is where we haven't taken the same approach of others. A lot of other states, when they did their express lanes, which we call choice lanes, they took the high occupancy vehicle lane and pulled it into their express lanes. And so in those states, there is an accommodation for HOV2, HOV3 in their express lanes. In this case, we have left all 4 existing lanes outside of the choice lanes, meaning the existing HOV lanes that are there will stay outside the choice lanes. So the only folks who would be in the choice lanes who would not pay are transit buses and first responders.
Mm-hmm. We have another question about accommodations being made for transit. Again, to answer, we have partnered with WeGo. Our WeGo buses will be operating in those choice lanes for free. And I think to add on to that, those customers, they're not going to be paying any additional ridership fee because they're using it. They will pay their normal WeGo ridership fee, and then those buses will operate for free in those lanes. Will the transponders work in other states for their choice lanes or express lanes? That's still to be determined.
We're still determining what our transponder technology looks like and how that interoperability will look. We can say that there's absolutely a movement among express lane systems in other states to come to a more interoperable, common type of a processing of user fees. And so as we progress through our project development and construction, we're absolutely looking at how that's advancing in other states, because it's going in the right direction. It's going in the direction of everybody's getting to a standard and cooperating.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any plans to incorporate park and ride locations within the TDOT right-of-way? So we're working very closely with
We're
our
early in design.
we're working very closely with the transit agency WeGo to see how our plan aligns with their plan and what that might look like. But as we mentioned in this meeting, we are still in the very, very early stages of even just our environmental studies and the design of this project. So a lot of it is still to be determined. And then we also will work with the developer when they present part of their plan as well.
And the transit hub that is in development now in the old Hickory Hollow Mall property, we're absolutely looking at how choice lanes can interact with that facility that will be a transit hub, an opportunity for park and ride, just a lot of good interaction with transit there.
Why should people across Tennessee who don't traverse this corridor care about this project? That's a good question.
That's a great question. And the answer is that by bringing in private investment for this very large project to address urban congestion in Nashville, this frees up other dollars. This frees up dollars for rural interstate lighting. It frees up other dollars for projects that are important to folks hundreds of miles from Nashville.
Yeah. I think what's important to clarify is maybe the cost of a project like this. This project is the most complex and largest project that TDOT has ever undergone. And something like this is not cheap.
Right. I mean, the entire corridor that we showed on previous slides, we're still in the process of estimating cost on that. It's probably over $5 billion. And TDOT's annual budget is $1.2 billion. So our entire annual budget of $1.2 billion for resurfacing, taking care of bridges, taking care of our right of way, plus building any new projects that are in the pipeline. Obviously, we would not be able to tackle a mega project like this without an innovative financing approach like a P3.
Yeah, exactly. Who pays for the cross highway bridges that must be replaced to accommodate the new lanes?
That's part of the project capital expenditure that the private developer will pay. So all the work that's there to widen lanes or to add the lanes, to rebuild interchanges, that's all work that the developer, the private partner, takes on.
Is the proposed Rocky Fork interchange going to be built first? So we don't know exactly what will be built first, correct?
Correct. We don't have any information about sequencing of construction. We're still trying to determine the starting and stopping point of the first phase, the first project that we'll be procuring.
That actually brings up another question we had come in that says, what is the projected endpoint into downtown Nashville? Understanding the design is not complete.
So that's the point. The design is not complete, and refining where the starting and stopping points are some of the big work that's going on right now for us, because we have to pick the right start and stop points to have a project that's of the right size that we take through the procurement so that we get the best result for Tennesseans.
It's just going over what we've got here.
So someone asked, who sets the toll amount, the Transportation Modernization Board or the developer? The Transportation Modernization Board sets policy. They set the methodology for how user fees are set. The developer sets pricing using a dynamic pricing model. And remember that this dynamic pricing determines the number of vehicles that choose to use the lanes. If too many folks are in those lanes, they don't work the way they're supposed to. And the developer could even violate a minimum speed requirement that's in their contract with us. We could actually end up fining a developer who violates the minimum speed because they haven't set their pricing appropriately. The important thing to remember here is there's always a choice. The 4 lanes that are there now are still going to be there, and they're going to be performing better than they are today.
Mhm.
And there's always the choice to not pay a fee and stay in those lanes.
Will all 26 miles be built at one time? I think for our we are locals, so I think for our sake, we hope not.
No, we, as I said just a second ago, we're looking at, what makes sense. We're trying to right size the project so that the market can respond to it. We want competition on this first procurement, and you have to have the right size project to get the competition that you want. So that project size will be some smaller portion, not 26 miles. It may be 12 to 14 miles
Right.
out of the 26.
Yeah. And just for clarification, the 26-mile footprint that you saw in our presentation today, that is what we are studying, what our environmental footprint is. We want to make sure to cover the whole area so that as we go through this phased approach, we have studied that whole corridor and we then can tackle the projects as they come up.
Sure.
Yeah, we're
I
just
think
scrolling through the questions.
I think we're getting,
I think. And then I've got some down here we can tackle if we need to.
so why, again, this is kind of a repeat, but why is this corridor selected for choice lanes when traffic is getting worse everywhere? Pretty exhaustive study that looked at congestion all across Tennessee. And the I-24 Southeast corridor was the worst congestion in the state of Tennessee in terms of the intensity of the congestion, the duration of the congestion, and it was the clear first choice, pardon the pun, as our starting point. We would love to build choice lanes across Tennessee, wherever it makes sense. We had to start somewhere, and this was the obvious first choice.
Yeah. Another question that we have gotten about crashes and how to respond to crashes when they happen. Will traffic be able to be bled off into the choice lanes when those happen? At this point, the answer is probably not, that those choice lanes will remain free flowing. But if there is an emergency large enough, catastrophic, some kind of.
In express lanes in other states, if there is some state of emergency,
Right.
some natural disaster, whatever,
Exactly.
There are no choice lanes in general.
Not at that point.
No, but there are incidents in the lanes every week. And when there's an incident in the general purpose lanes, the choice lanes are available for an alternative. But to take control of those privately developed, privately financed lanes would not be something that would work in the contract structure.
Right.
I mean, while we're talking about incidents, we've gotten some questions from our first responders.
We have.
When we've been out in community meetings and interacting with them. They want their first question was, can I get in those lanes and do my job? And the answer is absolutely. This is all TDOT right away. And those drivers are still driving on Tennessee roads. And so they're able to enforce laws. They're able to respond to incidents. When, again, just like a natural disaster, when someone's injured, when there's immediate care that's needed, there are no choice lanes. There's just folks need to get wherever they need to be.
Yeah. It looks like we've gotten some specific access point questions. Why don't we go back in the presentation to those alternatives? And I think we're going to go over those quickly if we can. Is that possible? It is, let's see here. The alternative 1 and alternative 2 for the access point maps. We'll keep going. Keep going.
There you go.
Those there. So this question is, will a Rocky Fork interchange be an access point, and if so, what type? So it's not currently an interchange and it's not proposed as an access point. But you can see them here as alternative 1 at least.
That's a direct merge south of Rocky Fork, but not direct access at Rocky Fork. But we want to hear feedback on that. I mean, that's the whole point of these public meetings.
And then can you get to that alternative 2 again, just to show that one more time? And then again, there you can see in the legend where it's an exclusive choice lane or a direct merge or choice lanes full access, etc. Okay. We have a variable speed limit through some of 24 now. Can that go back to normal with this plan?
So the smart corridor, part of the smart corridor design was to utilize variable speed limits that are intended to smooth the flow and create a safer flow of traffic.
Which it has done.
Which it has done. So in terms of whether we go back to normal speed limits, right. We really don't have any information to share on that right now.
At this point, it's still a little early to tell how the choice lanes and the smart corridor will work hand in hand together. We know that it will be useful during things like construction and other parts or phases of these projects. But we do know that this is going to interact somehow. We're still just working to find out how.
Why not convert the existing HOV lane to a general purpose lane when the choice lanes are active? We're not able to change those HOV, the HOV elements due to federal requirements. I mean, this is a federal highway. Those HOV lanes, the project that put those into service had federal dollars in it. We're not able to convert HOV lanes. And we made the decision to leave those, as we said, outside the choice lanes.
Will the project proceed concurrently with the upgrade to Nashville downtown streets with the added demand reaching downtown by adding the choice lanes? I think in short, really to answer that is the project will be constructed independently of other projects. So this really, I think there's maybe a timing thing where, oh, this happened to happen simultaneously with other improvements in town, but this is not connected to any other projects in the area. Would that be correct?
Right. We certainly take, our planners take all of that into account, but in terms of coordinating this privately financed effort with state projects, with local projects, we're not to that degree of simultaneous construction, I guess.
Right. Is there a plan for inclement weather? A bad wreck occurred in the North Texas area on the express lanes where heavy ice fell.
So we go back to very early in the presentation when Rebecca said that the private partner will design, build, finance, operate, and maintain their lanes. We will continue to operate and maintain the general purpose lanes. Choice lane providers in other states have great facilities that are staffed. They have a lot of trucks to maintain their lanes, and they have an incentive to do so, right? I mean, they want their lanes to be open for business, just like our TDOT folks get out there and plow snow all night because we want our general purpose lanes to be open for folks.
And that's to say that, you know, we will still have well, in this case, in the Nashville area, we will still have our Region 3 TDOT maintenance crews out plowing the roads to ensure we have at least 1 or 2 lanes open, you know, in those inclement weather times. So there will be a response in both areas. Why are no choice lanes earmarked for Memphis?
We'll talk about good news in Memphis.
Oh, the bridge?
Yeah.
You did just receive a huge amount of good news in Memphis for the I-25 bridge announcement. In light of choice lanes, all 4 regions were studied, and the data suggested that not this corridor was the one that really would benefit from choice lanes.
There's absolutely congestion in Memphis, but the studies showed that there wasn't a really good corridor to use this particular approach. There are other approaches, but the approach of choice lanes didn't really fit. But while those studies were ongoing, we were applying for a grant, and you know, with the state of Arkansas, we'll see a new bridge for I-55 in Memphis, and that's a great benefit for travelers between these 2 states.
And it's a huge win for Tennesseans overall. So I think that brings us to the end of our question and answer portion. This has been a great session. We feel like we've got a lot of things answered. Thank you so much for attending our public meeting. I'm just looking down at my notes to make sure I've got everything covered here. There we go. So, you know, again, your feedback's critical. So we really encourage you to review the project materials again, go look at those alternatives again, look at the maps, make sure you're seeing everything that we provided here today. Take the survey and comment form, that's on our website. You can also reach us, the project team, by email. That's again, tdot.24choicelanes@tn.gov, or you can leave us a message at 615-451-8039. Now, if you want to meet with anyone on our project team and see those materials in person, you can attend our in-person meetings. Any 3 of them coming up. The dates and times are about to be shown on your screen. Be sure to also follow us on social media and stay tuned for more opportunities to engage with the proposed I-24 Southeast Choice Lanes project.